Question number 5, Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. Has he ever described achieving a surplus in this year as an artificial target? If not, why not?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, it is a somewhat artificial target in that there is not a single dividing point between the government's books being in good shape or not being in good shape, if only because of the potentially significant variations in forecasts. For instance, in the last 4 or 5 months, inflation has turned out to be significantly lower than was anticipated just back in December. So the government is making good progress on getting its books in order. There will continue to be fluctuations in forecasts, particularly of tax revenue.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
If getting into surplus in 2014-15 is an artificial target, why was it the #1 promise made by National in its publicity material to voters at the 2014 election?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, it wasn't the #1 promise, in fact, because New Zealanders know that fiscal surplus is not an end in itself. The point of the target has been to get control of government expenditure and ensure that we get good value for the PAYE that New Zealanders hand over at the end of every week. And we've been able to achieve that through better public services and consistent movement towards surplus and the ability to repay debt.
Supplementary.
Point of order, Grant Robertson.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave of the House to table this document.
No, order.
Our 2014 priorities
Member
with the
will
surplus
resume
at
his seat.
#1.
I will not be putting the leave. Supplementary question, Jami-Lee Ross.
What was the state of the government's finances when National first came into office in 2008?
Honourable
Speaker,
Bill English.
When we first came into office, we were faced with the legacy of a government that increased spending by 50% in its last 5 years in office. So, in fact, we inherited, well, the Labor Party have forgotten this, we inherited a $3.9 billion deficit for 2008-9, and Treasury was forecasting never-ending deficits, and that's before the Christchurch earthquake and the recession. So, Mr Speaker, the deficit peaked at $18.4 billion, and we are making considerable progress in reducing that and moving to surpluses.
Supplementary question, Jami-Lee Ross.
What progress has the government made in turning the government's finances around?
Honourable
Mr Speaker,
Bill English.
What is just as important as the progress we've made on better public services, because this government has taken the view that what delivers results for communities delivers results for the government's books. So while we've run relatively tight budgets, we have focused strongly on getting results for the taxpayers' money that we already have and addressing long-standing and persistent social dysfunction which drives much of government spending. This approach is working. We are getting better results in our communities in terms of lower crime, less young people going through our courts, a 40% reduction in the number of sole parents under the age of 20, and reducing long-term costs of welfare dependency. And as a result of that, Crown expenditure in the current year is about $4 billion lower than we thought it would be 3 years ago, when we set our surplus target.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Does he recall his own statement, quote, "Getting back to surplus is one of the most important contributions the government can make to increasing genuine national savings and building a more competitive economy"? And how does he reconcile that with his newfound belief that it's just an artificial target?
Keep a straight face.
Honourable Bill English.
Yes, I do recall that statement, and I'll continue to make that statement. But unlike the member, the government is not obsessed with a particular point target. We're headed in the right direction. We are achieving what government wants to achieve, which is improved public services and protection of the most vulnerable, at the same time as supporting a growing economy. We are moving in the right direction towards surpluses and reduction in debt.
Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
In what way is the New Zealand Herald wrong when it said that, quote, when it comes to the surplus, promises are promises, and he and the Prime Minister's reputation will be damaged if it does not achieve a surplus it has promised for 2 election campaigns?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I just disagree with them. In the first place, they don't know what the numbers might actually be, and we won't find that out until October this year. Secondly, it's pretty clear the government has government finances under control and we're headed in the right direction. And a lot of New Zealanders have confidence in that. And we're not going to let the pursuit of any particular number in the operating balance stop us making good decisions for the progress of the New Zealand community and the New Zealand economy.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
If he's not interested in a particular number for the surplus, why did he go to New Zealanders and promise a $372 million surplus?
Because that was before.
Well, Mr Speaker,
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, we have always indicated we want to get to surplus. That's clear. That has proven to be a very effective anchor for public service and community expectations. The actual number, of course, is a product of the independent forecasting capacity of the New Zealand Treasury. We don't pick a number, and as I've said to the member before, we're not going to make random cuts to entitlements and public services just to satisfy him about a particular surplus number.
Order. Order. Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Does he agree with the New Zealand Herald that John Key has, quote, indulged in smoke and mirrors to make a surplus or deficit in the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars seem inconsequential? And why has he promised to New Zealanders for 2 election campaigns that the government's books would be in surplus, only now to decide that it's an artificial target?
Honourable Bill
Mr
English.
Speaker, no, I do disagree with the New Zealand Herald, and the member needs a bit of context for this. The deficit reached $18 billion. The most recent forecasts for the 14-15 year closed that from minus 18 billion to minus 500 million. That is dramatic progress by any standard, and the government has done that at the same time as improving public services. And I know the member really resents the fact that we've been able to improve public services and get the government's books in order, but that is what we will continue to do.
Question number 6, Derek Ball.